It's 10:01. I think we'll just give people about maybe 5 minutes to join in before we can start the meeting. Thank you. Hi guys. It's 5 minutes past 10, and we were just waiting for people to join in. Other people will continue joining in while the meeting will be going on. So I'd like to welcome to this part three session of the proposal writing. And for me, I'm very excited to be part of this session because I'm looking about the M and E section when it comes to the proposal writing session. So before we get into the nitty-gritties of today, before I even do the housekeeping, I'd like us to just take a moment of silence. Coparos lost one of its volunteers this week, and I'd like us to uh, just have a moment of silence in respect of Nyoko, one of our volunteers. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So with the housekeeping, so as usual, let us keep our mics off while the meeting is in session, and also feel free to ask questions so that our facilitator can be able to respond to those questions. Then this is the last session Youth Hub is offering, because we thought this is an initiative that we thought of bringing to youth-led organizations, because we felt that how can we give back to the society as a youth-led organization. So we came up with this initiative through the Youth Hub to be able to empower youth-led organizations with the skills that they can be able to use to either win grant or just how to go about running an organization. So this is for you, youth-led organization, and also please pay much attention to the form, the M&E form that we get to, the evaluation form that we get to send in the chat, so that we can better our programming when it comes to organization development, and also so that we can be able to know what kind of skills that you'd like to learn that we can be able to provide as Coparos Youth Hub. And then also initially, these programs, these activities were supposed to be happening at the Youth Hub, but like everybody knows that this is a pandemic period, so we decided to have a virtual meeting. So don't be surprised soon when the cases of COVID go down, that will come up with a meeting that we can be able to host at Coparo's head office in IBEX, the way you can be able to come through so that we can be able to interact, and also can be a platform for youth-led organization to network when we get to offer such programs. So look out for those activities that we'll be able to bring out to you. So having said that, I'd like to hand over to the facilitator so that he can be able to start the meeting. Brian, over to you.
Okay, thanks. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. Welcome everyone. So as indicated, I think this is the last session for the proposal writing skills. Yeah, so this is the last session, but we look forward for other organization development stuff. Yeah, so today we're going to look at three things. As indicated last week, we'll look at the budget, we'll look at the logical framework, and we'll look at the risk matrix. So those are the three things that we'll look at. So I'll start with the results framework. So a results framework, or M&E framework, is basically a framework that is provided to actually give a summary of the project in terms of the objectives, the outcomes, in terms of the targets that you actually set for yourself, the indicators, and so on. So it's like a summary of the project in one document, in one framework, that simply, allows for accountability between those that are submitting the proposal and those that are providing resources, or actually the organization also to mirror its success against the set targets of the project, and also to ensure that the organization is able to measure whether they're actually achieving the results that they set for themselves in the project document. So that is what the project or the M&E framework is all about. So as usual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a projection of a framework. They're actually different frameworks. They come in different formats. So I'll again just project two examples of a logical framework and how donors position them, however they actually position them, so that then we are able to learn from those. Yeah, so I'm just opening them up. I'm just opening them up. So I'm going to use the Copperos one of the projects that I did for Copperos as an example. Again, I will not be able to share these materials because they are actually for organizations. I'm just using them as an example. So both the budget and the proposal, the logical framework that I'm going to show you just actually as an example, so that then we are able to learn from that. But as I indicated, there are different formats that donors put forward to. It's either you can have a standard format or you can actually have a donor designed format, depending on who is actually funding you or who wants to fund you. They will provide the templates, or you actually provide your own template. So I think that is how things actually work from that side of things. So we'll start with the logical framework, and I'm just projecting now the first example of a logical framework for Copperos. Screen, which one here? This one. Okay, so let me know when you are able to actually see. Are you able to see the document?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you remember that in our first session, I indicated that goals are usually associated with the impact that you want to see in the particular area where you want to do the project, while objectives are associated with the immediate the outcome results, and then activities are associated with output results. So I'm going to demonstrate in this format. This is one of the formats. I will show you another format, how these things come. This is a project that Copperos was developing to Action Aid on a project called the HAAY 2. It's a second phase of the project. They had the first phase. This is the second phase. So there's a component where there's a project goal, and they are saying the goal is to improve adolescent and young people's access to sexual and reproductive health and rights in Mazabuka and the Petaoke districts. There's a component where there's there's actually results, how they arrive there. So on indicator, they are using a percentage there, percentage increase in adolescent and young people accessing sexual and reproductive health and rights in Mazabuka and Petaoke district. So they are going to measure whether they're actually achieving that goal by the percentage increase of the number of the adolescents and young people that are accessing the services in those two districts. Usually, some donors will ask you for the baseline because you are saying percentage increase. So you have to provide the baseline to say what is the current percentage before you go there as an organization. You start intervening. You need to understand what is the percentage of adolescents and young people accessing reproductive health rights in those two districts. So there you see, I actually put it to be determined because you need a baseline survey for you to determine the percentage in those two districts. So you need baseline data. So baseline data can be gotten from maybe district health projections. They do have reports in terms of the numbers or percentages of young people that are accessing their services in the various facilities in the district, or you can conduct your own baseline survey to actually determine how many of what is the percentage of young people against everyone who is accessing sexual and reproductive health services in facilities in those districts. So you just look at the numbers of and the age category of the people that access the services in a particular year in Mazabuka and Petauke. And then you calculate the percentage of young people and adolescents. So you know the age category of adolescents and young people. It's basically 10 to about 24. So 10 to 24, how many among all the people that access the sexual and reproductive health services in Mazabuka district, what is the percentage of adolescents and young people? 10 to 24. So that will be your baseline. So at the stage when I was actually working on this proposal for corporals, there was no baseline. So when there's no baseline, you indicate to be determined. And in the explanation to the donor, you can actually put even within the activities and budget a baseline survey to be conducted before you start intervening. And then the target is basically to what extent do you want to actually increase the numbers or the percentage of young people. So if the baseline is going to tell you that the current access by adolescents is actually 15%, and then on the target you want to increase by 20%, which means by the end of the year or by the end of the project, you'll have the area percentage plus the 20% increase, which means you can actually measure that. So that is how this indicator baseline and target works at outcome, at impact level, at project goal level. Then Action Aid also wanted the purpose of the project. What is the purpose statement of this project? This is, as I said, this is like a different format. I will show you another format. Before I go to that, down here, you'll be able to say data source and the data collection methods and frequency. So data source, as I indicated, is the project baseline for the baseline data. Here, you need a project baseline report. That is the one that is going to give you the baseline for the data. And then for the target is the end line survey. So at the end, before you undertake the project, you conduct a baseline and it will tell you the percentage of young people that are currently accessing services. Then you go and implement your activities. After the project, you go and carry out the end line survey to actually determine to what extent the project has had an impact on adolescents and young people accessing the services. And then you had set your target to increase these services by 20%. The endline survey will tell you how many now, at the end of the project, how many adolescents are now accessing services. So that will tell you whether you've met your targets in terms of goal, or you actually, the project didn't meet its target. So when these are means of verification that I talked about in earlier, where you actually look at the data source and the means of collecting this information. Down there, it's data collection methods and frequency. So baseline and endline survey to be conducted by Coparos Zambia. So baseline means before the project. Endline survey means after the project, which means that the frequency here is before and after. So that is at the impact level. That's how you measure at impact level. Then at the purpose statement, Action Aid asked Coparos to also come up with a purpose statement and also indicate how this purpose statement to translate into key results for this project. So what they are saying here is that this project, the Health Action for Adolescents and Young People project, will enhance the target districts to scale up comprehensive package of sexual and reproductive health rights programming for adolescents and young people with an amplified focus on empowering adolescent girls and young women to be their own voices and actively participate in planning, implementation, and evaluation of adolescent sexual and reproductive health programs. So this is the purpose of the project. And then when it comes to indicators, here, you know, at first we were using percentage, here they are using numbers. Number of adolescents and districts, and the number of policymakers and service providers reached with adolescent sexual and reproductive health in the target districts. So, these are indicators which they set for themselves. Baseline, again, to be determined. The baseline that we said on part 1 will tell us the number of adolescents that are currently being reached with the SRH rights. So through maybe in school, CSC, and other means, you do a baseline to understand how many adolescents are actually being reached. So in this case, during your baseline, a baseline is more like a research. You come up with the tools that target, you know, whether it is schools, whether it's young people themselves, to ask them whether they've had, you know, you sample whether they've had the sexual and reproductive health rights awareness messages in the districts. Then you compile and then come up with the baseline for that indicator. And then for number 2, again, you collect data among the policymakers within the district and providers to find out whether they actually reach out to adolescents and with the SRHR kind of information and so on. Then it will give you the baseline there. And then on the target, they are saying now here is number. Remember, when you are saying number of, on the target, you need to put the actual number. When you are saying percentage, on the target, you need to put a percent, you know. So since we are saying numbers here, you can see on the target, there are numbers. There are 12,500, 6,000 in Mazabuka, and 6,500 in Petauke. Here, in terms of policymakers and providers, 250 in Mazabuka and 150 in Petauke. And also there's a responsibility on the other side. Who is going to ensure these numbers are actually reached? If you are a project officer, you are the one who is running that project, you are responsible to ensure that these numbers are actually reached, because at this stage, it is at project level. On top, you can see the difference between the overall responsibility to achieve the goal. There is the CEO, the overall person in the organization is the one who is accountable for the impact or for the goal of the project. But the project officer is actually responsible to ensure that the actual numbers of adolescents required to be reached in the project are actually reached, because they are the ones on the ground doing day-to-day work for the project. But overall, the one who is actually accountable to ensure that this project is delivered is the CEO. So you see the difference also at that particular stage. Then when it comes to means of verification here down, in terms of the data source, you can see again, we are talking about project baseline survey report, periodic project progress reports. So depending on how you're set up as an organization, you can actually document activity reports or periodic reports like quarterly reports. Also, donor can dictate to you that you'll be reporting to us on either monthly or quarterly or biannual or annually. So here, because corporals didn't know how often the donor would want them to report, you use the word periodic project progress report. Periodic can mean monthly, it can mean every 2 weeks, it can mean quarterly, it can mean biannually, you know. And then the data collection method and frequency. Baseline survey will be conducted by Corporal Zambia and the progress report to be provided to Action Aid Zambia. So these progress reports that will be provided will actually demonstrate how, to what extent the organization is meeting its targets. So if period 1, maybe it's quarterly, you out of the 12,000, you met 500. When you are reporting period 2, there should be an incremental kind of they should be incremental in terms of reaching the project. So that way, the donor is able to monitor how you are actually performing. So if you are not by half a year, if the project is 1 year, by half a year, you are at 1,000, but your target towards the end of the year is 12,000. Then somebody should be able to ask questions to say, what is happening? You told us you are reaching 12,000, but it's half a year. This is when you are reaching 1,000. And that demonstrates the importance of this result framework or M&E framework, because somebody should be able to monitor whether you are actually achieving your planned results or your planned targets, or you are not achieving. So that's the reason why this framework is actually important. So that is at purpose level. So let's go down. Then now you go at output level. Remember, at purpose level, it's as good as the objective level, because then at that stage, you are actually looking at, you know, the overall purpose of the organization and what you want to achieve in terms of targets at that particular stage. So at output level, here now, it is the activity level, you know. So adolescents and young people are aware of their sexual and reproductive health rights and are increasingly utilizing available youth-friendly services in Mazabuka and Petaoke districts. So here, this result demonstrates that you would have created awareness. An activity under this, I'll be able to show you like corresponding activities. I think there should be another form. And a corresponding activities to achieve this output is create awareness among so many in school or out of school young people. How do you create awareness? Maybe undertake drama or sessions and so on. You are creating awareness, isn't it? So in Mazabuka and Petaoke districts. So in terms of indicators for you to ensure that you see that there's awareness, young people are aware of sexual and reproductive health rights. You talk about the number of adolescents and young people sensitized on sexual and reproductive health, the number of sexual and reproductive health spaces supported, the number of adolescents and young people accessing youth-friendly services. So access to service is synonymous with awareness. If people are not aware of their sexual and reproductive health rights, the access to services will be low. If young people are not, if you are not going to sensitize young people about their rights, they are not going to know, isn't it? If you are not going to support spaces where young people are found to ensure that those spaces provide sexual and reproductive health rights, you are not going to reach out to the number of young people that you are actually looking for. So youth-friendly spaces, these are spaces where young people find themselves, where young people find it easier to interact with other young people without being stigmatized or something. Spaces can be maybe cinemas, that's a youth-friendly space. It can be school clubs, those are friendly spaces. It can be football where young people play games and so on, those are youth-friendly spaces. So all the spaces where young people are found, whether these are bars or whatever, these are spaces where young people are found. So if you support information on reproductive health in those spaces, you are actually reaching out to young people because they are found in those spaces, you know. So baseline in terms of number of young people sensitized, again, this will come in the baseline report. You don't have this baseline because you don't know how many young people are being sensitized currently, but you know how many you want to reach out to. So, for example, in target 1, you want to reach out to 12,500. You want to reach out to 50 adolescent spaces in Petauke and Mazabuka. So you identify those spaces in different areas, whether it's in schools and so on. You identify those spaces and provide information. Then you want to ensure that so many young people are actually accessing the services, the health services, the sexual and reproductive health services. In this case, the target was 7,500, 75% being girls. Even down up there, you see out of the 12,500, you are saying 75% of that number should be girls. Remember the purpose, the purpose, the purpose statement which we just read on top, the emphasis of the project is to reach out, the emphasis is on adolescent girls. So as much as you want to reach out to boys, but the emphasis was of the project is on girls. Hence the highest percentage here in terms of reach is for girls. So you specify so that somebody is able to understand. And when you are setting up all this, the person who is going to read and when you are reporting, they will compare with what is here. For example, if you send a first quarter report and then on awareness, on a number of young people sensitized, out of 1,000 that you are reporting for that quarter, you find that the majority are actually men, or the majority are actually boys. Somebody will ask you to say, but the purpose of this is, the purpose statement says the emphasis is on girls. Why are you reaching out more male adolescent than female as set by the project? So when you are actually putting these targets and you are being specific, they help in the M&E process. They help the donor to actually understand whether you are actually within the scope of the project or you are outside the scope of the project. And on responsibility, the person to ensure that this is done, because they are the ones on the ground, is the project officer. Let's look at this, the data sources here. The data sources here is the baseline report because of the baseline which is not there. The activity reports for sensitization. So if you undertake a sensitization activity, there should be an activity report, and somebody can verify through that an activity report on whether this activity took place or not. Then monthly project report. So these can be monthly, they can be by, I should have said the periodic reports, right? Because they can be monthly, they can be quarterly, they can be biannually. It will demonstrate, whether these activities took place or not. Data collection methods, reporting on monthly basis. So again, you have to be guided there, whether these reports will come, on weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So the report, that reporting, or the reports that is actually the method that you are using that we are going to use to collect this data. It's the reporting tools that you provide for people to report, whether on monthly basis or whatever. And I know that for most of the organization, they have formatted report forms. Donors will give you their report form, but in the organization, you have maybe an activity report form where people fill in whenever they do, and after they've done an activity, they actually fill in that report and submit to the organization after an activity. Let's look at another example on output 2. Adolescents and young people are empowered to be their own voice and are actively participating in implementation of the adolescent health programs in Madabuka and Petauke. So at this stage, you're actually building the skills of adolescents to be representing themselves and participate in the development of the planning, implementation, and evaluation of adolescent programs within the district. Let's look at some of the indicators. Number of adolescents and young people trained as advocates on SRHR. Number of adolescents and young people supported to participate in adolescent health programming spaces. Number of adolescents and young people advocating for sexual and reproductive health rights. Number of IC on SRH policies printed and distributed. So these indicators, for you to know that young people have been empowered, you need to train them as advocates. You need to support them to participate in adolescent health programming spaces. These spaces, you have to identify them within the district. These spaces, for example, I know they can be at community level under the, they call them what? Hank, or they call them at facility level. There's a committee which Ministry of Health put together that plans and so on, like SMAGs, like so those community health, health committees at community level. They can be at district level, like the adolescent health technical working groups at district level. They can be at at ward level, maybe the ward development committee. Young people can be represented there and champion reproductive health and so on. So you train them, and then you identify spaces and support them to participate in those spaces. And then a number of adolescents and young people advocating for rights, you can again support them to be on radio, on TV, to actually advocate for reproductive health, sexual and reproductive health rights. And then you can print IC materials and other materials that they can use to distribute on SRHR policies and so on. So those are the indicators. So you know these indicators are actually linked to activities that you are going to do to ensure that these indicators are actually achieved. In terms of baseline, you don't know currently at this stage, Coparos didn't know currently what is the number of young people and adolescents and young people that have been trained as advocates. The baseline report has to give them, because they have to undertake a baseline to understand from the district perspective how many young people that has the district trained as advocates. Number of adolescents that are participating in ADH at the time of doing this proposal, they didn't know. But this baseline data can be corrected at it can be collected at district level to understand how many young people are actually participating. You can do a questionnaire for SMAG members, for the health facility, for the ADH technical working group. They can tell you how many young people are actually participating. Young people advocating and so on. You can go to the district health and other civil society and find out if they've young people that they are supporting to actually participate in radio programs and so on, and are champion reproductive health. IC materials that have been printed on policy, you can go to the Ministry of Health or DATIF and so on to find out how many IC materials the district would have actually printed or distributed on SRHR policy. So this will be gotten from the baseline report, and once the baseline has been done, this TBD under baseline here, TBD under baseline will be filled in per indicator, because you'll fill in to say, maybe, for example, if the baseline find out only 10 young people were trained in Mazabuka. You say 10 young people were trained in Mazabuka as advocates. And then on a target here, in terms of what the project is trying to do, you are saying you are going to train 100 more, and 75% of those will be girls. And then on number of adolescents, whatever participating, if the baseline says there are only 2 currently, you are saying you're going to train 50 more, and 50% of those will be girls. And then in next, it's on a number of adolescents advocating for rights. If you say in the district currently, the young people that are championing reproductive health are only 50, you are saying you're going to train 200 more, and 75% of those will be actually girls. Then on IC, if they are saying we only had 5,000 or 20,000, you are saying, okay, as corporals, we'll print and distribute 10,000 more IC on SRH policy and so on. Data sources, baseline report, activity reports, monthly project report, means of data collection methods and frequency on a monthly basis. In here, they're saying reporting on monthly basis. It can be on a weekly basis. It can be on a quarterly basis, depending on how your organization and the donor requires you to actually collect this, how frequent you collect this data. So that is how that part is actually filled. Now down here, as I said, the outputs are linked to activities. Remember, this is what I actually said. So down here, it is a demonstration on how activities are linked to outputs. Output 1 is what we said. Look at the activities that you are going to undertake. And these activities are directly linked with the indicators under this output. Remember, for example, output, remember indicator number 1 under this output was awareness raising. Right? Young people are aware. What are you going to do as an activity? Hold the SRH rights awareness sensitization session with adolescents and young people in Mazabuka and Petauke district. So that will be your activity. Your milestone, like what you need to achieve, is linked with your target. Because milestones are basically achievements, what you are actually getting out of every activity. So if you are going to create awareness, your milestone here is 12,500 adolescents and young people have been sensitized on their sexual and reproductive health rights. Activity number 2 under the same output, support adolescents and young people spaces in and out of school and strengthen learning on sexual and reproductive and referral mechanism to youth-friendly services in. So for the reason why you cannot remember, our goal is to increase the number or the percentage of young people that are accessing services. So if you are going to strengthen a youth-friendly space and provide learning on sexual and reproductive health, there should be referral mechanisms to ensure that after those young people have learned, they are actually referred to the services, because your ultimate goal is to increase the percentage of young people accessing the service. So the activity should really be framed in such a way that somebody who is reading it here, they will not ask so many questions, because they are able to see that you are identifying the spaces, you are strengthening the learning in those spaces, but also you are creating a referral mechanism to ensure that those young people access the services. Hence, this activity will contribute to the ultimate goal of increasing what? Access to the services. So this is how it actually goes. I won't go through all these, but this is an example of how outputs are linked to activities. So I think I'll pause here on the logical framework. I'll ask for questions before I actually take you to the budget template. But as I said, there are different formats, but the information that you are putting for each logical framework or for each framework that they may provide, the information is the same. Just like the proposal format, there are different formats, but content in terms of information and logic is basically the same. So let me take a few questions before I actually take you to the budget and risk matrix. Any questions for me?
Yes, I wanted to ask. So, when you're writing the proposal and you reach the management and evaluation component, you just start your result framework as your evaluation process, or?
Okay, thanks. So this result framework, when you are doing your proposal, this is where the whole proposal is. As you can see, when somebody reads this framework, you can do your summary. Remember, we did that summary and so on, how things flow and so on. But completing this first will give you an idea in terms of how the project, because the whole project is in here. Somebody can decide not to read the whole proposal and just pick the logical framework and read it. They will be able to understand what you are trying to do, because it has got the goal, it has got objectives, it has got the outputs, it has got the activities, and so on. So it has got all the results that you want to achieve. Of course, it doesn't have the problem statement, because somebody, when you're looking at all these solutions, somebody should go to the problem statement and read what the problem is that you want to achieve. But it is always important when conceptualizing, you start from the logical framework. Then that's when you go to write the whole proposal, and then you come back again and polish. So I agree with you that it is important to actually start with this framework. Any other question?
Okay, Brian.
Yes, Elvis.
Yes. Yes. That's a very, very good presentation. It's very helpful because the way the result statement is, it's more like it's the backbone of the project.
Your volume is.
Am I on mute? No.
Okay, now
I can audible.
Okay. Yeah, you are now.
I can get. Yeah, it's not really a question. It's more like a contribution. Yeah. So the way that framework is, it's more like a backbone of the project, because everything is in there in that framework. It guides you where you can even help you to.
I've lost you again.
Sorry? Am I audible?
Elvis, I've lost you.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, now you are audible.
Okay, I don't know where to start from. Anyway, I was saying the framework is more like a backbone of the project, because it provides almost everything, the activities, the targets, and all those things. Then also, I've liked the idea of the baseline, because the baseline is a key for you to conduct another project. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I
Brian?
can hear you. Yes.
Chewe, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yes. So mostly in Zambia, the issue of a baseline is more like a problem, because we don't keep data. It's very difficult to keep data. Some projects, you find that finding data is very, very difficult. But in the event that you're using, or you're doing another phase, like to say phase 2 from phase 1, meaning the same phase 1 data can also be used as a baseline for another project of the same project, like for phase 2, isn't it?
Yes. So like this is phase 2. It was coming from phase 1. This project is
So
like this is phase 2.
Yes.
It was coming from
phase 1.
This project is
So like it's more like it's a continuation.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any
Hi,
other
Brian.
question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
There are situations where you're applying for the donor hasn't specified that you should include the result framework. Is it mandatory, despite them not specifying that there should be the result framework? Should you prepare it, or just because you've prepared the proposal, there is no need for a result framework?
You can prepare that for your own M&E. You need to prepare that for your own M&E. As an organization, it's always good to have your own M&E, because this M&E is not only, you are not doing it for the donor, you're actually doing it also for you as an organization to track whether you are actually on course.
Yeah.
Are we together?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay. Any further question before I go to the next presentation? Okay, so I'll project the budget. Are you able to see the budget template?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so this will be short. So the budget should flow in such a way that it shows the goals, the objectives, the activities under each objective, and the inputs. Inputs here, these are the things that you require per activity to be completed. So we have our goal there. We have objective 1. We have activity 1.1. That's how it flows. Then on the columns, we have the inputs. Okay, here there should be inputs. Okay. The column number 1 is inputs, per unit cost, number of units or quantity if you like, then total, and you have comments or justification, the other side. So for example, activity 1.1, hold SRH awareness sessions. What are the inputs required? Refreshments for the adolescent peer leaders, transport refunds, those are inputs. Inputs is what you require for you to undertake this activity. And then what is the unit cost? The unit cost is how much each of the refreshment will cost you. Number of items is the number of, in this case, these are input is refreshments, right? And then you are saying per unit is 100 kwacha per refreshment. Is per person. Per refreshment per peer leader is 100 kwacha. How many peer leaders? 50. Remember, the number of items, the number of people that you are targeting should correspond with what is in the target. And then what's the total? So it is basically 100 times 50 equals the total. Then on justification, you are saying 50 peer leaders times 10 sessions at 10 kwacha per person. So 10 kwacha times 10 sessions, that is the 100 you are seeing here. So you are on justifications here, you are explaining these figures, these two figures that you've provided on per unit and number of units or number of people or whatever. You are simply justifying, you are actually explaining how you arrived at 100, how you arrived at 50, and how you arrived at 5,000. Are we together? Then transport refunds, transport for organizing the peer sessions, you are saying 1,510 equals 15,000. So you are saying 100 kwacha per person times 10 sessions times 50 people. That's how we are arriving at 15,000. So on justification, you have to actually explain. So this is the same throughout. This is under objective 1, you have all those activities. Under objective 2, you also start activities 2.1. You need to put them nicely. And again, you have inputs there. When you are doing training, these are the inputs that you have. Venue, stationery, trainer's fee, and so on. Those are inputs that you have. And on amounts and justification, it should make sense. You need to already explain what these figures that you've put there, what they mean. Other donors, they will not put justification this side. They will tell you to do a separate document called budget notes. So that, especially USAID project, they are good at that. They will tell you to prepare a different, this Excel, you put your figures, then they'll tell you to prepare what they call budget notes. So in the budget notes, you quote each budget line and explain what the budget means. Because for some donors, they would want you to put a figure. You are saying training of whatever, you put a block figure. How much? So much. They will not want you to break it down into these inputs. But then they'll ask you to provide budget notes. So in the budget notes, that's where now you explain what that figure means. But for this format, I developed this format for ActionAid, for ActionAid, so that they can use for partners, for easy, so that we don't have a lot of documents to use, so that it already has a place where people can do the comments and justifications. So that's it. Someone asked me about salaries. Under 4, remember, under 4, here, you can see monitoring and evaluation and learning. When you are doing your proposal, don't forget to actually add costs, like costs for monitoring, evaluation, and learning. You have to ensure that each project is monitored, it is evaluated, and it's learning. And there's also learning. So under here, you can see there are 2 activities here. There's undertake baseline survey. They had Mazabuka, so now they have to add Petauke. So they already have baseline for Mazabuka under phase 1. So now the inception, they have to just do for Petauke. And then 2, conduct quarterly monitoring visit. That is part of M&E. There are supposed to be 3, it's here. Undertake endline survey and project closure meetings in Petauke and Mazabuka districts. So this is very important. M&E has also its separate activities where you need to actually cost and list what is required for M&E to take place. You put the baseline TBD to be determined. So you need to undertake a baseline survey. At the end of the whatever, for you to evaluate the impact of the project, you need to undertake the endline survey, something like that. Then there's the staff costs here. I'll just remove this. Okay, there's staff cost here. So project officer, remember what I indicated, project officer is somebody who is running that project, which means they are 100% on the project. So you put all their salary, the amount you put here, per unit, unit cost you put, if it's per month, their monthly income should include a salary, gratuity, medicals, and so on. It should be gross that you put there. And percentage here is 100% total, so much. So here what I did was, I did times the number of months of the project. So if it's a 1-year project, you do unit cost, which is the salary, gross salary, times the number of months. And then there on the percentage, you put 100%, then it will show you the total amount there. Then the program manager, remember there are also people, apart from someone who is running the project, this person is reporting to some position which is managing different projects. So you are saying program manager will contribute 10% to this project, which means they will get 10% of their time to every month to provide checks or to provide backstopping to this project. The M&E officer, again, if you have one for the organization and they're managing different projects, you put the percentage which they will contribute to this project and you cost it. The finance officer, same. The CEO is overall. They are not only 100% on this project, they are running other things. They are running the organization. So for the specific project, they'll contribute an amount of time to that project to ensure that it runs effectively. Then also there are operational costs that you need to put, such as rentals, such as communication, audits, and other operation costs that needs to be included in the budget. But remember, in this project is contributing, how you calculate this, you do your total organization cost, and you do a percentage of this project against your total organizational money that you have. That's the percentage that you are going to use against the rentals, communication, and the annual audits. I don't know whether you are clear there. What I'm saying is that if your total annual budget for that year, for the year 2021 corporates, if it is 2 million, and this project is 481,000, you calculate a percentage of this project against your total annual income. That's the percentage that you are going to use to actually allocate rentals and everything. So if your rental cost is 5,000, this project will contribute, if the percentage, operation percentage, your actual budget is 2 million, and then this is contributing 400,000, and then the percentage maybe is 15%. This project is 15% of your annual budget. You use 15% across the operational costs, annual audits, office communication, office rentals, and so on. It is easy to justify with the donor to say, this is a reasonable contribution. For some other donors, they'll give you a standard indirect cost percentage. EU will give you 7%. They'll say, out of the whole project amount, 7% is yours to sort out your operation costs. So they'll do that. But for those that do not do, you use that as a basis, because it's easy to justify to say, this project will cover so much percentage of our annual income. So it has to contribute to our operation costs. So let me stop here and ask for questions on budget.
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
I have a question on the operational percentage. Did you say we divide the total activity costs, or the total, how did you say we arrive at the percentage again?
So your total organizational budget against the contribution by this project. What's the percentage of this project against your overall budget as an organization? So if your overall organization budget for 2021 member is 2 million, that's like all your income from different donors. This project is 400,000. You do a percentage of 400,000 against 2 million. That's the percentage that you are going to use to apply for to apply as the operational costs. So if your rentals is 5,000 per month, you are going to use that percentage against the 5,000. If your communication cost is say 10,000 a year, you are going to use that percentage against the 10,000 rental, and then other costs, other operation costs. I hope that is clear.
Yes, Brian.
Okay, any question? Can I go to the risk matrix? We're 5 minutes away. So let me quickly take you through the risk matrix. Let me just open one. Okay. Let me just open the risk matrix. Is the budget presentation making any sense?
Yes, Brian, it does.
Okay. I'm just opening up a risk matrix so that I take you through that. It is also very important because you basically actually need it. A lot of donors now want to see that in the proposals. I know that with some donors, it's not like a priority, but I think most donors now want you to do a risk matrix. So I'm just trying to get a best example possible here. Okay. Okay. So I have an example here. Let me just project it. Okay, so I have an example here. Project gap. Okay. Are you able to see the document?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
Okay. So they'll ask you. This is a proposal that I did for Fight Inequality Alliance to Oxfam and Open Society Foundation. So they'll ask you to do a project risk analysis or assessment as part of the project documents. Apart from the results framework, the work plan, the budget, they'll ask you to do this risk register. So you will have to actually enter the type of risk, the description of that risk, the probability of that risk happening, the severity, if it actually happened, how severe it is, and controls in place to minimize this risk. So internal, and there's internal and external risks. So internally, the types of risk that you have is financial, human, they can be financial, human resource, organizational, development, strategic, they can be like so many. But as an example, in this project, one of the risks that we identified was financial. Description: failure to meet the ambitious annual budget projections. Remember that when I was presenting on the budget, some of the percentages that you provide to ensure that the project runs smoothly comes from other donors. For example, I was saying that you'd put in this project, say 10% or 15% for the finance person to actually contribute to the project. But you find that you fail to meet their overall salary because other donors are not coming forth. So that's the description. Then the failure to meet the annual projection. If your annual projection says 2 million, and then you are expecting this money from Action Aid, from who? Then Action Aid doesn't fund you, which means that risks your budget projection from being met. Probability, how possible is that this thing can actually happen? It can be high probability, low probability, or medium. It can be either it can happen or it might not happen, or the likelihood is high or the likelihood is low. What will be the severe, how severe will this actually cause to the organization? It can be minor, moderate, or major, depending on where this money is coming from. If it makes maybe 50%, and that's why when we're going to talk about organization development some other time, I'm going to take you through why it is important for you not to depend on one donor to cover a large percentage of your budget. Because when that donor pulls out, you have a major, you have a severe, it will have a severe impact on your budget. What controls that you actually put in place to minimize this risk? FIA has a health pipeline with double effort to explore new models of fundraising in place. So this is what I was talking about to say. If this donor pulled out, there'll be a major impact on our financial health. And you need to put a mechanism in place to ensure that you have other donors that are actually in the pipeline to ensure that should this donor pull out, you are able to actually still get more money from other donors like that. Human resource reduction in funding may have an impact on sustainability of our required human resource. The probability low, severity major. So you can rate depending on your organization. So you are literally doing your organization assessment here. If this donor pulled out, what will be the impact on our human resource? Organizational development, FIA countries and structures fail to develop. So if you have the structure, for example, you have district structures and so on. If something happens, to this project, what will be the impact? First of all, what will be the probability that it will happen? What will be the impact, severity of the risk if it happened? And what control measures have you put in place to ensure that this is put in check? It minimizes that risk. There's strategic there and so on. Then also you have external. You've seen here, you have external risks. Some of the external risks can be environment. FIA recognizes the deterioration effect of climate change in most of the countries where it operates. So if you're operating in Petauke, you need to know the environment there. You need to know there's also issues of protection here. Issues to do with Shia. Shia, sexual exploitation issues. You are working with young people, so you can talk about what mechanism you can put in place to ensure that you reduce sexual exploitation of the adolescents that you are working with by either the staff, the volunteers, or maybe other people within that space and so on. And what mechanism, is this risk high or low? What is the impact if it happened? And what mechanism are you going to put in place to ensure that that is minimized? For example, here, FIA staff have signed to the Action Aid MSTCDC safeguarding policy. All host organizations at country level are assessed to ensure they have adequate protection systems. There can be also issues of political. This can be also a risk. The continuous shrinking civic space in most countries is a threat to the organization, whatever. If you are doing governance activities, obviously you are going to be met with a lot of, political issues happening and people stopping you from gathering and so on. There can be health. There can be health risks like COVID-19. which will actually be a risk to your activities for this project, because maybe there can be a lockdown or something like that. So this is basically how the risk register looks like. It needs to have the type of the risk, the description of the risk, the possibility of that risk happening, how severe if it happened, and the mitigation measures that you are putting in place to ensure that. So this risk matrix just tells you how thorough you've thought about this project, and the donor will be able to look at it and say, you are prepared for this project, you've put measures in place, you've identified the risks and you've put measures in place to ensure that those risks are actually mitigated in case they actually happen. Let me end here. Let me have questions, if you have any questions on the risk register or the risk matrix. Any questions? Is this clear, comrades, young people?
It's clear.
It's very clear.
It's clear.
I have a question though.
Yes.
This is Jacob Mtambo from IPPF. I just have a question on the co-funding. There are times when donors tell you to say, from our budget, we don't want to fund anything to do with admin costs that includes paying salaries and other stuffs. So in that case, how do you mitigate that one?
So thank you very much. That is very important. I actually expected that question on a budget, as complicated as the donor. So if they are telling you just budget for activities for the people that are going to implement those activities, so push all your salary costs, don't put them down there. Put them, calculate them and put them within the activities. That's how we go around. It's for them to actually have a salary budget line that is bloated, because when they receive money, and the ones that do that mostly are these small donors. They are not donors. Action Aid is not a donor. They are organizations that receive money from donors and they want to subgrant to other agents to implement on their behalf. So they keep, what they do is that they keep the salaries budget lines from donor to themselves, and they want to now give activity money to these to the agents to implement on their behalf. So also what you do is that within each activity, if they are saying training of peer educators, put money there for an officer that is going to spend so much of their time to mobilize. Put money there for the M&E person who is going to report. Put money there for the facilitator. So make sure that within the activity, justify and put money for the specific people that are going to take part in that activity. That's how you carefully, I've run a local organization before, that's how you carefully, do. Don't create a separate budget line for salaries, but put money within the activity that you are able to actually pull out as a contribution to the time that your staff is actually going to spend on that particular activity. Are we together?
Please.
For example, Coparos, on your phase 1 of the Action Aid grant, the percentage of salary amount was lower. I think they gave you about 25%, where you should put salaries and admin. So what I did when doing that proposal, I put the salary for the project officer 100% as part of the activities, as part of the direct cost, not as salaries. So I relieved the 25% from that 100% budget line for the project officer. So I put it as part of the activities, then remained with the 25%, which now was distributed among the other people that are going to contribute 10% for the program person, 10% for whoever, and another percentage for operations. Because when we calculated the 25%, the salary for the project officer was more than it was going to get the whole 25%, and still it was not going to, we were not going to manage to pay them for the period of time. So I pushed that cost into the activities, and it was approved. Are we together?
Yes, Brian.
Yes, Brian. Yes.
So how did it reflect in the activities?
As the project officer's time.
Okay. Okay.
Then it was justified as this project officer would do day-to-day, running of the activities. So I put it as part of the direct costs. You can go back, member, and recheck that budget. You'll find it was like that.
All right, Brian, I will.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. If there's no other question, I hand it back to the Copperos team to wind up.
Wow. Thank you very much, Brian, for that awesome presentation. For me, I'm very, very amazed, and I'm very eager to just be on a part of a team that will be doing a proposal, because I feel I'm fully skilled now, and I've attained the right knowledge that I needed to be able to come up with a very, very good proposal. So like you've noticed, I sent a link in the chat for you to be able to fill in a form. That's an evaluation form that will help us to better our programming when it comes to organization development. So please fill in that form so that we can be able to get the feedback on how this meeting has been and how the previous meetings have been. I hope you've learned something. We've had 3 sessions. It has been a roller coaster of knowledge, of information that would really help us better our organization when it comes to winning grants. When it comes to winning grants. So please make sure that you fill in that form, and also please check out our space, our social media platforms for more activities, more organizational development skills that we'll be bringing to you virtually due to the pandemic. So please watch that space so that you can be able to register and be the first one to be part of that meeting. So I'd like to thank every one of you who has taken their time to be part of this meeting. And I also thank the Copperos team that has really come up with this idea to bring this important meeting that will really help youth-led organization when it comes to organizational development. So I thank every one of you for being part, and mostly I thank Brian for taking his time to be able to impart this knowledge on us, youth-led organization, so that we can be able to better our organization skills. So thank you everyone for being part of this meeting. I wish you a lovely day and God bless.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good day.
Bye.
Thank you, Brian.